Hello, welcome to Diploma Sports. My name is SC. Joining me again on the line, I have my friends Ghost and Steven. Hello, gentlemen.
How you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
Thanks for joining me on this lovely Sunday evening for some discussing. Tonight, we're going to discuss current events. We're going to start in the world of sports because there's a few things I have to get off my chest that are of dire importance as far as sports is concerned. And then we will move on to the important stuff and discuss the bombing of Syria and the nuclear option and, the ridiculous other amount of crazy stories that seem to be happening every day here in this lovely country. But first, Ghost, why don't you tell the world how to find us?
Hi. You can, of course, find us on Facebook on Diploma Sports. I don't know exactly the URL, but I'm not going to bother reading it. You just search
I'm pretty
for
sure it's Facebook/Diploma Sports, but yeah.
Okay, that will work. We are found on Twitter at Diploma_sports, as well as the same handle on Minds and Gab if you'd like to find us on more obscure sources. We also have a WordPress blog under Diploma Sports. All right, let's talk about sports.
All right, so big news this week. Tony Romo, who I will argue is probably the most underrated quarterback in a while, and I say that as someone who has grown up hating Tony Romo, but now he is stepping away from football for some ungodly reason to now take the lead position at CBS, being the color commentator for games. So two main thoughts with this. My first main thought is how the hell is he not the Texans or the Chiefs quarterback? That just seems absurd. And my second thought is that this is really, as much as Phil Simms has been incompetent for a number of years, this does seem like an incredible one of those cases of somebody getting a job they don't deserve, kind of like our president. But anyways, so yeah, those are my two main concerns. What do you guys think about this whole Tony Romo? Do you think it's going to be successful, or is he going to be back in the NFL? Because that's kind of a popular thought as well too.
Well, I just make it all political, but Tony Romo, very talented quarterback. As far as announcing goes, I've not heard the man speak, so I don't know. Maybe he deserves it. Maybe the network isn't looking for a great orator. Maybe they're looking for a popular, well-known player who's very much in the minds of current fans in a massively large fan base. Yeah, maybe it's more, the name rather than the actual talent there, or maybe he is a great speaker. I just don't know. What are your thoughts?
I think those are fair points. Yeah, Steven, what do you think?
I mean, as far as his playing ability, I think that he's had so many injuries, and yeah, he has skill, but I think a lot of players look at it, or a lot of teams might say, if he gets hit, his back has had problems, and a lot of his body, it's kind of one of those things where it's like he's kind of fragile. So I don't doubt his ability, but you kind of really have to question his health if you're a serious team, and to spend as much money as it costs to get Tony Romo, it's an extreme gamble. So unless you have like the offensive line, like, I don't know, the Dallas Cowboys, you're really not going to protect him. So as far as his transition to he joined the second tier broadcasting for, what was it, CBS,
I believe he's going to be the lead person. He's with Nance on the CBS, like the 1:30 Patriots Steelers game or whatever. He's going to be the guy just thrown to the fire right away. As far as I've heard, that may get structured as we get closer, but
right. No, but I think he's going to get. I mean, he's going to be talking on games, but I think that he's not getting the first seed. I forgot who the first team.
Oh yeah, that's definitely still Nance, because Nance is for it. He's just the color commentator, which is normally reserved for a jock or somebody who used to play in the sport. So I mean, it doesn't make sense in that sense, certainly.
But I've heard him talk a little bit, and I think that one, he's respectful, he's kind, and as far as I've heard him, he's well spoken, he's articulate, and I think he has an incredible mind for the game. So I'm excited, to see anyone who leaves football to then be able to stay in it, and he has value to add to the game. So this is great from I love seeing players be able to continue to follow their passion, because Tony Romo is extremely passionate and hardworking towards a game of football. And so it's like, hell yeah, keep him around. Like, find avenues for him to be able to continue to do what he's great at doing. So he can't throw the ball anymore, but that doesn't matter. He could still be a great commentator. Maybe that morphs into coaching or whatever. But yeah, I think it's exciting.
Well, I would like to actually counter your point on his fragility. I think that is a very valid point. I think that he gets hit and you take out his back, he's done for the season, and that's a big sunk cost. But on the other hand, if you think of like proven quantities among available quarterbacks, I think no one's a tier within what Tony Romo could provide a team.
Yeah, I mean the closest person is my beloved Colin Kaepernick, probably.
Yeah, that's
true, but for the cost.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Steven, or whoever was.
Well, I mean, even with Colin Kaepernick, I think Colin Kaepernick is at least a tier or a tier and a half back at least.
I would agree with that. I mean, Tony Romo was definitely the best free agent quarterback this year.
Yeah, I mean, like that
undeniably.
Like name like there are very few teams that if they had Tony Romo as their starter would be worse.
Well, and that's, I guess, my whole broader point is it seems, and I do agree that obviously if you're investing in a quarterback and he gets injured, then your season's essentially done. We saw that with the Cowboys a few years ago before they had Dak, and really arguably it should have been last year if Dak hadn't been so transcendent. But it just seems like he is a Hall of Famer. Am I wrong on this? Like it seems like that's questionable, and the two people that piss me off the most. Yeah, I think Tony Romo was a Hall of Famer.
I think if he had more playoff success, I would agree with you. I think if he got over the hump and if he made it to a Super Bowl, I think he'd be a Hall of Famer.
But is that something? And I think this is actually a more interesting discussion than the Tony Romo discussion. If we look at the idea of Hall of Fame, so like Terrell Owens didn't make the Hall of Fame this year, which is absolutely absurd.
Oh yeah, that's because the writers don't like him. But
I feel like in general, our system of how we get people to the Hall of Fame is very archaic, and I feel like if you just look at Tony Romo's numbers, he deserves it.
Right.
I'd have to take a closer look, but I think like on the cusp, right? Because he does have great numbers.
But I think he's too expensive. I think Tony Romo's value is he was scheduled to earn $14 million in salary, which is what he's worth. But when you look at that and you say, okay, I can either hire Tony Romo and then I sacrifice buying a mid-grade defensive linebacker or putting the necessary pieces around a complete football team. So let
me offer a scenario for you that I think is win-win for Tony Romo. I think if you can get him to a short-term deal, 1 or 2 years, you minimize the risk yourself. You pay him probably $20 million. You pay him like 1 year, $20 million. You sacrifice maybe some extra pieces you get, but you've got a quarterback set. Because I can win a game if I'm missing one explosive defensive player. I cannot win a game if the guy who the ball goes through, who my entire offense runs through, cannot move down the field. And I think if you go for a year, even if he gets horribly injured in the first game, you've still got your backup in place. You play him throughout the season, and you don't re-sign Tony Romo. That salary cap hit is now gone, and you're ready to pay for someone else in the next season.
I mean, it made enough sense to me, but obviously the teams that because you just look at like the Jets, like how the Jets quarterback situation is so dismal right now.
Right? Who's their quarterback?
Okay, well, so Fitzpatrick is not. And every Jet fan is happy about that now. I'm assuming it's Hackenberg, is the guy they drafted like 1 or 2 years ago. And then they have the guy from Baylor that was really good in college that just hasn't been good and looked dreadful last year as well, too. Yes. So, yeah, I mean, it's just weird. You think like Chicago signed Mike Glennon to $15 million.
Wouldn't you rather spend $15 million on Tony Romo?
I mean, I tend to think the answer is yes, but
I'd rather pay an extra.
Goes back to the broader point is that we overvalue.
That money, like it's such a. I understand the point in having a strong quarterback, but when some of the best free agent linemen cost $5 million and $3 million or like $2 million. That extra, $10 million that you're going to spend on Tony Romo, you then lose picking up assets that can build a team for the future. So if you're trying to win short term, Romo's your man, but who's going to roll the dice on that? That's a hard sell.
Well, wait. Do you think that there are more than 10 impact linemen out there? Like that would impact your team and make your offensive line fundamentally better than it is before?
I would think
I don't think there's enough.
There's more than there are quarterbacks. I would say there's
Well,
more.
of course, this is my point. Like I think there was one impact quarterback out there on the market, and his name is Tony Romo.
And now he's no longer.
See, you will make a case for Colin Kaepernick, but I'm talking about that I know will make an impact as long as they're healthy. I think Tony Romo is guaranteed.
Well, and again, I guess the broader point too, the whole point about is how we value Tony Romo. I think is very ridiculous. I mean, basically, his most famous play was a muffed punt where he was the snap, where he was the holder. So that's what we all know him for in the playoffs, and he wasn't even quarterback. Or we know him for the interception in the end zone against the Giants the year the Giants upset the undefeated Patriots. Like we know about those plays, but I mean, if you look at Tony Romo's numbers, no one has more touchdown and interception ratio, I think, in the fourth quarter or something than Tony Romo. So the idea that he's somewhat of a choker is completely incorrect. But for some reason, that follows him. And like my dad who watches sports is all like, "Oh, I would never want Tony Romo on my team." And it's like, why? How would you never want like? And I understand the injury stuff, but it just seems like back to the idea about the Hall of Fame. I feel like he is so underrated.
Well,
as someone who hates the Cowboys and has always hated Tony Romo.
Yeah, but what this really comes down to is that those playoff games that he's miffed are worth more than 16 times as much as all those regular season games he's played great in.
But isn't that kind of crazy? Isn't that just like, I mean, doesn't that seem like archaic and outdated as far as doesn't the measuring system seem off when it comes to how we value quarterbacks?
I mean, you think back to greatness, you think honestly, we think playoffs, we think Michael Jordan 6-0, we think Kobe 5-2. What are we measuring? We're not measuring Western Conference Finals. We're measuring championships.
No, and I get that, but then if you look at where do you put LeBron as far as LeBron compared to Kobe? Because I would say LeBron's a better basketball player.
I would say Kobe is currently a better winner. LeBron has time to make that up. But I would say Kobe is the better winner.
I think LeBron's already proven that he's a better NBA player than Kobe was. I mean, Kobe won 3 of those champions. I mean, and this is someone who loves Kobe, but I'm just saying. But that's obviously we can dive more into that.
You could make the argument that it was Kobe and Shaq that won those first 3, and then Kobe and Pau that won those next 2. But it's not like LeBron was running around with a bunch of nobodies when he won his championships.
No,
right?
But he's been to 6 straight finals. He's going to be in 7 straight finals, essentially. So, I mean,
I don't know about that. This could be the year we break that.
All right, well, let's smoothly transition to the NBA and discuss this because the regular season's ending, and then let's touch upon this real quick, and then let's get to the important stuff because I feel like we're spending too much time.
Yeah, we are delving too much into sports, but yes, tonight, of course, our local home team Lakers decided to beat the Minnesota Timberwolves, which is even doubly cruel because the Suns had won their game and that would have tied them.
They did this the other night too when the Suns beat the Thunder, and then they went on and beat the Kings at the last. And they keep winning these games super close too. And,
I know it's frustrating because I want Lonzo Ball. I want Lonzo.
You're actually rooting for them to lose, right? Correct.
Yeah, I'm actively rooting for them to lose because in the long term, it is better for them to lose these meaningless games.
Yeah, it is, and I don't see how anybody with a rational fan could think unless you're at the game.
Popovich for throwing that game for us.
Yeah, so all of a sudden the Lakers are now going to have the 4th pick, and the Celtics.
What you're saying is they're going to have no pick, and the Boston Celtics are going to have the number 1 overall pick as the number 2 seed in the playoffs because the Nets have no front office.
And because they thought that Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce at that time was the acquisition that they needed to make the playoffs.
Oh, gosh.
The Nets have not made good decisions for God no. Yeah, since the Russian guy bought him, he just literally was like, "Can a pile of money buy me a championship?"
This isn't baseball. You can't be the Marlins twice.
The Marlins.
Yeah.
Don't even get me started on the Marlins. Jesus.
No, the Marlins in 97 and 2003, where they essentially just bought all these good players, won a championship, trashed the team, and then came back 6 years later and did it again.
Jeffrey Lurie is probably the worst owner in sports. I think I can feel pretty confident saying that and not feel like I'm going to have too much.
Is he the Marlins owner?
Yeah, the Marlins owner, yeah.
Well, I'm talking about the Marlins of...
And also now our ambassador to France.
Huh.
And this is funny because he was going to sell the team, and because he's ambassador to France now, he couldn't sell the team. So yeah, the Marlins are now stuck with him for some unknown reason. He should just sell the team and do the city of Miami a favor. The only reason I know so much about this is because I listen to Dan Le Batard every day, and they're situated out of Miami, and they bitch constantly about Jeffrey Lurie. So I feel their pain.
Okay. Yeah, and the Angels. All right, my hometown baseball team pulled off an amazing comeback from down 6 runs in the 9th inning. Scored 7 runs in the bottom of the 9th to win the game against the Seattle Mariners. What a great start to the season. Now 5-2.
I know it'll be great when they go 80-82 and barely miss the playoffs again, right?
Shut your whore mouth.
So I explain this to people a lot, just to give our listener a background. Ghost and I went to the same high school, and at that high school, there's a lot of bandwagon teams. Am I right about this? There are certain teams that just pretty much it seems like everybody roots for. As a consequence, I have habitually rooted against a certain amount of teams, and the Angels is one of them. So it does give me a certain delight to see how incompetent they are all the time. Those other teams, in case you're interested, are the Yankees, the Chargers, USC, the Ducks, and I always forget one. But those are the big ones. Oh, and the Kings, because they're the number one bandwagon team.
I will never begrudge anyone for rooting for a team that's less than 10 miles from their place of residence, or like less than 20 miles, like in the same state as they live in. Like that's fine.
Yeah, I guess the Angels is more reasonable. The Angels is our closest team, or was our closest.
But like for all the Seattle fans we have down here who aren't transplants from Washington, screw those people. Seriously, like, okay, look, they won a championships and now, the Seahawks, best team ever. It's like, yeah, right. You don't know that team.
Well, and I root for the Warriors now, but I just mostly because I like watching the Warriors. I'm legitimately a fan of the Warriors. I'm not like someone that's like, lives or breathes on whether they win or lose. I just enjoy watching them so much. And I think it's great.
They play a very fun brand of basketball. Even, as a Lakers fan, I have to admit it. And as, my team, I'm begging them to tank. It's not such a big deal.
Oh yeah, the other team, the Clippers, is the other team.
How could you hate the Clippers? They're so incompetent. It's just amazing.
Well, because I don't hate the Lakers, so I have to hate one of them. So
okay, that's fair. The Clippers. Oh, gosh.
All right. So yeah, I don't. Does anybody else any other? Or sorry, go ahead, Steven.
One of the biggest things in sports was Russell Westbrook finally breaks a triple record.
He broke Oscar Robertson's triple-double record, right?
Yeah. He finally got it, which is, everyone's kind of seeing it.
Overrated.
Overrated?
That is my the triple-double is an overrated statistic.
Call it what you want, but what it goes, so one about the Lakers is saying punished for tanking, but the Lakers didn't tank, but should tanking be punished because it doesn't make good basketball, right? And it's complete crap. I'm not saying that I think they should get punished, and I don't know how you would even consider, how do you just like measure tanking, right? Some teams having a bad performance is that like, oh, we're going to punish you now? Like, I don't like where.
Well, I think the Nets are playing hard every night. The Nets just suck. So
the Nets get nothing no matter what. That's the sad part. Like the Nets had nothing to gain by tanking. They're just that bad.
The Celtics had everything to gain from them tanking.
I know, but like the Nets, like they're just literally that bad. Like I honestly don't believe they're tanking because they get like what, a second round pick.
Well, and because the Lakers, I can tell the Lakers aren't tanking because you can see that it's just young talent. They're just not good enough yet. But like you can tell. I feel like almost the Knicks are just like, well, the Knicks. We can't even start on the Knicks. Just out.
I feel like the Suns are tanking, but like here's the thing.
Keep winning too.
I know, but like the net, well, not the Nets, the 76ers. I honestly believe they tank every single year. Because they
also have nobody on their roster that's like supposed to.
They just keep shutting. If their player like sprains his ankle bad, you're shut down for the entire season. Like Joel Embiid, you're out for the season. Why? Because he hurt his leg again. It's like, no, Joel Embiid.
But to be fair, Joel Embiid is better than anybody on the Lakers, Suns, or Nets at this point. So
I mean, about Devin Booker, you might have a argument there.
70 points is also overrated.
What?
Are you kidding me?
Okay, so back to my point, why I can defend myself, because if we had Twitter followers, they'd be yelling at me right now for calling this triple-double thing overrated. So let me explain real quick where my position is on all this. And maybe we'll just end up having this be more sports-heavy than we intended. But either way, I think this is a good conversation. Okay, so my MVP for this year is clearly James Harden. He's been the most valuable player in the NBA this year. Westbrook is literally, his teammates are getting out of the way so he can get rebounds, just so he can break this record. And it's not saying that the record isn't impressive or that I don't even like Russell Westbrook, because I do. I just don't think he's been the most valuable player for his team. I think that James Harden has been the most valuable player in the NFL or the NBA this year. I think that you look at win shares and you look at what they were supposed to be and how much better the Rockets are than the Thunder. And so yeah, that's my piece on that.
The thing is, I think Russell Westbrook should be the champion because of what it should be the MVP, sorry, because of what he did and because of how much lower the expectations are for that team. But I think you're right. I think James Harden will win the MVP.
No, I'm the opposite. I think that James Harden should, but I think Russell Westbrook's. I don't think. I think
the opposite. I think James Harden will win the MVP because his team is winning and he's clearly the catalyst that's making that team better, and because he's playing he's playing defense better than he ever has, which is to say he's playing defense.
I put a $5 bet on the Rockets to win the whole thing too, so that might be.
What are the odds?
Well, it wins 75 if they do, so it's a pretty.
That's not a great payout.
Well, no, I mean $5 to win 75 is not terrible. I mean that's pretty good. Considering the Warriors are minus 130, so a $5 bet wins you $850 back. So just in comparison,
I mean, but even looking at that, I think that watching the two, Harden and Westbrook, whoever wins that conference or that playoff round, they'll be going. I mean, that to me is going to be one of the most exciting, like the top two, the MVP candidates, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. That is going to be the first
at it in the first round. Like that's going to be off the wall.
They should decide on whoever wins that series is the MVP.
That would be crazy, but
I think that's looking at.
Oklahoma City has a really young roster. Like, not saying that Houston doesn't, and that this and that, but when you look at the age experience, a lot of those guys are rookies to third round. They have 3 guys who have 5 years experience in the league, and Nick Collison, who's been there for Baker's dozen.
Yeah,
he's 36 years old. They've 2
is Perkins still in that
those guys.
Is Perkins still in the league?
No, I don't know where KP is, dude. But KP, oh fuck, I love Kendrick Perkins, man.
Kevin Durant loves him too. Apparently, Kevin Durant could on Bill Simmons' podcast, which I do highly recommend. His interviews with Kevin Durant are fantastic. And yeah, Kevin Durant loves Kendrick Perkins.
Oh, dude, KP is on New Orleans.
Oh, wow, him, Boogie Cousins, and Anthony Davis all on one team. That is interesting.
Yeah, he's a tiny guy on that team.
That's crazy, but yeah, I mean, to the point. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, finish your point, Steven. Where you at?
Oh no, I was just saying Kendrick Perkins is only playing about 15 minutes a game and doing very little. Just I mean,
yeah, he's really old and kind of incompetent at this point.
I mean,
they were gonna say continent.
He was drafted 14. He was drafted in 2003 at the end of the first round, but he's always been a defensive player. Like, Kendrick Perkins is a leader with heart and hustle. Like, he'll never be a forefront player. You'll never hear about him really, but he does the things that make a team successful. Like when he was on the Celtics, dude, I always have mad respect for him because he did everything no one else wanted to. Everything, and never said a fucking thing about it. So
player, though, if your memory serves right.
He's a dirty player.
Yeah, I've heard that rap on him before too. I mean, some people really don't want to guard him, but I don't necessarily know if that makes him dirty. If that just makes him tenacious.
Yeah, I mean, and everyone hated.
I think he would like throw an elbow here or there, and like that.
Yeah.
I remember watching games at the Lakers in that championship that they lost, and then the one they won.
Dude, the Boston Celtics in 2008, that 4 years, they beat the hell out of people. Like, I thought it was aggressive. I was like, Rondo would harass you, then you would drive. You have Kevin Garnett doing something to you. And
that's true. That was kind of a
Perkins would body you up. Ray Allen could chase you around the court, and then on the other side, Paul Pierce is going to body.
Are you eating something?
No.
That was a nice crinkle. Well, I guess back to my point on the Rockets. I think if any, as I assume the Warriors are going to win, I don't really think anybody in the East is going to beat them. And I think the only team that can beat them in the West is the Rockets. The Spurs are good, and you can never count out the Spurs, but I think the Rockets beat the Spurs in the second round. And then we have that. I don't know if I see the Rockets getting past the Spurs. Yeah, see, I think that that's the only team that can beat the Warriors because that's a team that can actually match them with threes. And if the Warriors are hitting their threes, the only team that can even come close to beating them is a team that can actually shoot 43s a game and not be afraid of it. And plus with D'Antoni, I mean, it's basically they're basically a better version of those Phoenix Suns teams.
Oh, I wouldn't make that argument.
I mean, with a point guard that, well, yeah, I mean, he's no Steve Nash, but James Harden is just
you're missing pieces. You're missing the pieces around it. Amari Stoudemire actually playing good. You're missing Sean Marion at the peak of his career. Joe Johnson, one of those years. I don't buy that. That's better than that Phoenix Suns team that was winning 60 games.
All right, well, fair enough. Maybe they're not as good, but I think they're comparable, and I think they're a team that could be.
Sure, I'll buy that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I dropped out. I realized if someone calls me on my phone, it cuts out the Google call.
Well, I mean, that's bound to happen.
But
all right,
I think we should transition to Syria.
Yeah, let's transition seamlessly into to series topics because we have about 30 more minutes
topics.
Discuss real stuff. Okay, so if you were living under a rock, Syria, we bombed Syria with 59 Tomahawk missiles on Thursday, targeting a airbase with chemicals that were supposedly linked to the chemical attack that Assad allegedly initiated on his own people. This is obviously creating some turmoil internationally with very strong remarks from Tehran as well as from Russia, saying don't do this shit again, basically. So there's a number of questions surrounding this. But let's just start, Ghost. You were explaining to me why this was kind of your first a little bit of a reservation about Trump. So why don't you expand upon that a little bit?
Well, this is my first reservation because it's the first time he's ever shown to, appease the neocons in the party, the Lindsey Grahams and the John McCains and, the people who are wrong about literally everything.
I'm glad you say that.
Within the Republican Party. Because they have the worst sense, I mean, Mr. John McCain, who spent a couple of years in a Hanoi Hilton and got his arm messed up. Yes, he has all the great decisions, and he's pushing us. So we're gonna send boots on the ground into into a meat grinder that will be Syria, right? Like that's his plan. Is what I see it as. These neocons, they want us at war because they get a lot of donations from very wealthy weapons companies that want us at constant war with people, and they think we can solve all these problems by sticking our dick in another hornet's nest. That's kind of the problem. So, of course, this gives me reservations because I voted for Donald Trump because I voted to not get involved in other Middle Eastern conflicts. I want the Syrian people to determine their own future while we assist them in wiping the scourge of ISIS off the face of the earth. Do I like Bashar al-Assad? No, he's a terrible leader. He's a horrible person, but he's got the backing of Russia and Iran, who are much closer to the region and have much more vested interests at stake in this conflict. So they're just, we can't beat them. They're way more prepared to deal with this conflict. They're much closer to it. The stakes are so much higher that they're likely to be willing to sacrifice more for this conflict than we can imagine, right?
Yeah, and Bashar al-Assad, as you have said, is a horrible person. So what will he resort to?
Exactly. And here's the thing. Like, the problem with the response is that I'm not certain the chemical weapon attacks were done by regime forces. Because there's several things.
You don't have that conclusive yet, certainly.
So one thing at play is that the al-Nusra Front, I think, if I'm to be certain, was the ones who were actually laid the actual blame for the chemical weapons attack. Or there's a high degree of certainty that it was probably al-Nusra Front and not regime forces that used these chemical weapons in 2014. Another thing is those same forces were stationed in the area that was supposedly gassed by the regime, which could mean the bombs might have set off these canisters and triggered a chemical weapons attack by accident, because they have been known to hide their weapons among civilians. So I saw it as Bashar was, trying to take out opposition forces in a region, and maybe he triggered a chemical weapons attack. Another issue I have with the information on this is that apparently the reporter who reported the chemical weapons attack has a very dark criminal history, as in he may have been convicted of being a jihadi. I'm not 100% clear on that. So, for me, there's just too many things up in the air to just go out and respond to this. On the other hand, our president did say that that they had crossed a red line in the sand, and that he judges these chemical weapons as a human rights violation, that he felt was the right response in our national interest was to attack them. I don't agree with this position. I understand why he did it. Do you guys have any thoughts?
All right, fair enough. Stephen, your initial thoughts on this new front? Oh, and to keep in mind too, this is an important point that we have been bombing Syria and doing things in Syria. This is not like a new
first attack on Syria.
This is not the first act, but
Very
that's
important to know.
I'm curious to know more about the chemical weapons. I think that crimes against humanity and just like that's fucking atrocious. Genocide and everything's weapons is something to another level of it annoys the hell out of me, and it's that sucks. To simply put it, and I think that it does a lot to the people who got killed, but to the environment and the entire situation. But I'm to the and what were their motives, who supplied it. We would love to see more information about it and to really understand like who is at fault. I've heard a couple people, either conspiracy theories or whatnot, make allegations that somehow the U.S. is in support or we had our hand in it, this or this. So I hope to God that's not the case, and it's not we didn't create a reason. We didn't sponsor a terrorist attack just to justify a terrorist attack of our own. As far as the bombing of a airport or the airstrip, great, we showed a shine of strength, but who in the world doubted the United States' power? Really, like, I don't think anyone questioned the hard power of the United States, and I would be amazed if someone looked at Donald Trump and said he's going to act the way Obama did before he did that.
Yeah, I think those are two very valid points, certainly.
So it's like, okay, Trump now actually did it, and he confirms, sure, that, but it's like, what does that do? We spend so much money bombing this one thing that really didn't prove or do much. People already know, right? Or I think we could have done more. I think with humanity, and I forgot, it was like $80 million of missiles or something ridiculous.
Yeah, depending on how you price how much the missiles cost. But yeah, it's a ridiculous amount. We have bridges collapsing here, and do we need to fire 50?
Right, it's like
territory. Yeah,
it's not even about what you could spend the money on. How you could say, you could have free education, and the next generation can go to college for free. That's not my point. I'm not saying we do a trade-off. Even if you were going to go do something in Syria, shifting that money to then buying all Syrian goods or starting an entrepreneurship program, building up an economy, goes back to the whole point. Thumbs up to like, what is the end game in Syria? Clear.
Yeah, no, I think that's my main question as well. Is what is our long term because with Iraq we made, and actually, not to shamelessly plug what I'm going to be posting, but I did just write an article about learning from our mistakes. So I think if you look at it, and obviously this is not Iraq, but there are some similarities. We have a brutal dictator that's abusing his own people, and we have a government that seems, at least in our government, that seems a little bit bent on regime change. And that's, I guess, my question is, yeah, what exactly is our end game? What are we attempting to accomplish here? Do we really just want to defeat Assad, defeat ISIS, and then what? That just seems so short-sighted as far as a long-term goal. And I think, honestly, Ghost, the points that you made are the valid one. We just like you could argue with in Libya, or you could argue in Iraq. We have these brutal dictators, but these brutal dictators are sort of what's keeping it from becoming a political vacuum where ISIS would then be able to completely take charge. What if we defeated Assad and then all of a sudden ISIS is now completely in charge of the country, and we are fighting against someone with that sort of an infrastructure? And I think we're doing things that we just don't seem to be learning. We just seem incapable of it in other ways. And I think it's also because of neocons. I think we're so hell-bent on war in this country. And I think going back to our discussion last time we recorded, this is really just the military-industrial complex rearing its ugly head again. We are incapable of not being at war and not reducing our combat and not even thinking that this is even going to help. Because I don't think very many people think this is actually going to accomplish anything. It's just a show of force. So yeah, it really does frighten me because I really don't want to get involved in another land conflict. I don't want to get involved in even really another bombing campaign. I just want us to worry about ourselves and try to work where we can to stabilize the world. But enough is enough with this interventionist kind of attitude. I just don't see how this is effective at all. Thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you just said. I think we really need to. I hate to say it.
I never thought I would ever hear you say that.
I hate to say it, but it's I want the Syrian people to determine their own future. I want them to be able to come up with a solution and I want to help them. I want to help them deal with ISIS because I think ISIS are a plague upon humanity. I think they're monsters. I mean, there's no clearer way you can put that.
But how do we exactly deal with ISIS? And because I agree, I think if the United States could actually set up something where we could. Now we've completely thrown peace talks out of the way. Assad's not going to work with us anymore, obviously, to try to stabilize or stop the civil war. But even if we were able to do that, I just the whole defeat ISIS thing. I don't think we can ever defeat ISIS. Just like I don't think we could ever really defeat Al Qaeda.
And I agree with you because the problem is ISIS is Islam. I hate to say it, but that is what it is. It's Islam. It's a religion. It's a parasite upon humanity. It's how many people? I think over 1 billion people believe in this religion to varying degrees. They have varying interpretations of it, and they accept varying ways of how it's supposed to function.
Well, I don't agree with your entire premise. I do get your point. I mean, it's rooted in religion. You cannot get rid of an ideology. Just like the Empire trying to eliminate the rebellion in Star Wars. You're not going to do it just by blowing up all their planets. You have to. It's an ideology.
Well, the Empire needed to do that so they could defeat the extragalactic threat of the Yuzon Vong that would come many generations later. But fortunately, that's all been retconned and will stay retconned. But I agree with you. Yes, there's this horrible ideology, and I say all of it is horrible. I don't think you can separate the good from the bad. There's just so much bad there, and there's so much bad there, and it's used for so many terrible things, and so many people's lives are negatively impacted, much like Christianity used to. Christianity was much worse in the past, and fortunately, when many people died to reform it, it did reform it. It changed, and it's in a much more peaceful form today. But that's because it's older. It's had more years for it to change.
Well, yeah, it's 300 years or whatever ahead of Islam, certainly. And Christians did not help with Islam's initial entrance into the world in itself with the Crusades.
Well, you got to remember though. You got to remember when Spain was essentially controlled completely by a caliphate. When they took the Iberian Peninsula, there were constant attacks from Muslims into Europe. It's not the Crusades in a vacuum. Are like, oh wow, Christianity's evil, but it's like, no, they were a response, and I'm not saying it was the right response, but
yeah, it's just the point that this whole region is very complicated, and I think that's the broader point.
It is very complicated. I agree, and I don't think we should be getting too involved in this region. I think Donald Trump, part of why he was elected to be president was to get us out of these conflicts. Now, if this missile attack escalation into this region, if that is the extent of our escalation into the Syrian conflict, I will be very happy. I won't be happy because I have very different opinions than the administration and the world on chemical weapons. Right? I don't.
But yeah,
I just want to publicly make my views on chemical weapons clear. And my view is very simple. I don't value deaths from sarin gas more than I value deaths from lead. I think a dead body is a dead body, regardless of how you make it, and regardless of how you do it. I think if you kill 10 people with sarin gas, that is not somehow worse than killing 100 people with bullets, or sending them to death camps. That's not worse. That's the same. You're ending lives. All of us.
I agree. Okay, but what if it's 10 people with sarin gas versus 10 people with lead bullets? Then you would say that sarin gas is a worse way to kill somebody, right?
Sure. But at the end of the day, the overall accounting of it is you killed 10 people. That's wrong. Killing 10 people is wrong no matter how you do it. That's how I see it. It's like,
yeah, no, and I get it. And from that idea, then it would be an arbitrary red line, and we're basically involving ourselves in this region for some sort of it's a morality. We're painting morality onto war, and so I certainly get that concept. I mean, I do somewhat disagree.
War is an immoral construct on its face, right? Like it is immoral to invade a country or to kill people without them attacking you. Like that is immoral. Like that's just straight up. It's immoral. It's immoral to kill people, right?
Yeah, I mean, and under most people's beliefs, I would say so.
Yeah. Saying, if you're unprovoked, if you're not threatening someone, if you're not trying to harm them or take from them or basically steal from them or whatever. I mean, stealing, that's a bit of more of a gray area. I don't think you should kill people for stealing. But if someone pulls a gun and robs you at gunpoint, yeah, you should. You should shoot to defend yourself.
Shoot to defend yourself, yeah. But
yeah,
all right,
but if they're not, if they put something.
Okay,
yes,
so we're a little bit stretched on time, so let's wrap up Syria and then go to the other big news of the week. Steven, do you have any more thoughts on this? You want to get off your chest?
Man, it's just the end game. Like, what the hell is everyone doing there? Because everyone's like, oh, let's to me, it's like
Russia wants a pipeline. Russia wants a pipeline, and they need Syria as a puppet so they could pipe natural gas into Europe. That's the point of this conflict, is they need that puppet state so they can build their pipeline and they can be the number one provider of natural gas to Europe. That's the point of Syria. That's the strategic national interest for them. It's a pipeline. That's why the civil war is there, and that's why they're supporting Bashar al-Assad.
Always comes down to oil. Yeah, no, and I think I agree with that frustration. It just doesn't seem like we have a lot of direction from leadership. And I'm not saying this is specific to something. I don't think from leadership.
Here's another thing about natural gas, that the U.S. should have no interest in selling natural gas to Europe because it is completely economically unfeasible to take natural gas, put it in canisters, and send it on boats over the sea. That is not a feasible business model. There is no energy thing for us to do that. There's no energy reasons for us. We don't have that same interest that Russia needs for their economy to even work.
Interesting. I hadn't really considered that.
Like, if we were competing with them, it would make more sense, but we're
not. Well, yeah, I mean, that's all food for thought. So now let's transition again very seamlessly to something that's nuclear, but not in the same type of nuclear. So this week, we will have a ninth Supreme Court Justice. Neil Gorsuch is now going to be admitted. This is an interesting. I have a couple interesting thoughts on this overall thing. One, I think that Republicans are going to significantly regret this decision in 4 to 8 years, and I think that this is something where we have. It's one of those adages as far as people like me who claim to be in the political profession. You change these rules and you get a small victory now, but what does this mean 20 years down the line when hopefully Bernie Sanders people are in power and we're able to actually use these rules to our advantage now?
We don't have to worry about them. They're not having kids.
Well, okay.
We don't have to worry about those people. They don't have children anyway.
And that's probably it's probably good because we don't need more people to have kids. But nonetheless, it's a different discussion for a different time. The point is that be careful what you wish for. And this may be something that in the short term, you get Neil Gorsuch, who isn't as crazy as many judges as Trump could have appointed. Certainly, he's no prior. He's not going to get rid of Roe v. Wade. He's not going to overturn gay rights. He might certainly not help in certain issues that I care about. And the environment is already going to continually suffer under this administration. But nonetheless, I'm not necessarily too torn up by this. I certainly would like for Garland to be the Supreme Court justice, as it is his right, because Obama was president when there was a vacant seat and he should have been appointed per just the Constitution.
Thank you, Joe Biden.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, this is part of my point. They did something like that in 93, right, to benefit the Democrats then, and it came back to bite them in the ass now. And that's the whole point of all of this, is you make these rules. These rules are in place so that you actually have to work to win, and you have to get 60%. And I don't think that's crazy in the Senate.
Well, you have to remember that this whole idea of filibustering never existed in the Constitution. This is something that they came up with in 93, not 93, but they came up. Gosh.
But again, it's just another rule change.
It was a rule in 2003 that they came up with.
But back then you had to actually sit up there and talk, and you actually had to talk for, there was people reading all the Harry Potters or reading Lord of the Rings, and you actually had to physically be up on the stand and you couldn't take breaks. And now you can just declare a filibuster and be done.
Yeah, no, but here's what I think. I take the opposite view. I think the Democrats wasted this opportunity. right?
Do you think they should have done? Do you think they should have done it when Garland was the person up? They should have done all means necessary to get him elected and get him on the bench.
No. What I think the Democrats should have done was save this for something that would actually change the makeup of the court. Because the only way they win is if they can get activist judges in there that can change the law without Congress or other branches. That's how they win. And the thing is, Neil Gorsuch does not change the makeup of the court. He is basically a Scalia replacement. That's all he is. He's basically just keeping the balance exactly what it is. I would not have fought this fight in 2016. I would have fought this fight when the next justice was coming, because that's the one that actually matters to them.
But isn't that the whole point? Is now if Trump loses this election and all of a sudden there's a next justice, then all of a sudden the Democrats have it served to them on a silver platter, and even if they can appoint someone as a leftist,
no, they still have to win. They have to win 50% in the Senate.
Let's say 2020 and 2018 and 2020 go favorably for the Democrats. If Trump continues to be a dumpster fire,
it wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have mattered. The Democrats would have definitely overturned this rule as they did in 2013. They would have definitely done it. I have no doubt in my mind that Democrats would have done the rules change if they had the power to do the rules change. I think they would have done it for Merrick Garland if they had the majority in the Senate.
See, and I think, well, sorry, go ahead, Stephen. You haven't talked in a while.
Didn't the Democrats during the Obama administration at one point?
They had a super majority during.
They changed the right, but and what they did is they stopped short of the Supreme Court themselves, trying to be, like ability to do it, and they did do that for a lot for every federal position that was below the Supreme Court, but took the high road and saying, "Oh, we actually have, the majority, right? Not just like a simple majority, but the 60 votes required." And the Republicans said, let's just make the whole thing, simple, majority. So I look at it, I'm like, had they done it earlier, they probably could have gotten their choice.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think that's true. I mean, see, and that's the thing. We had just to give our audience kind of look into the behind the scenes. We have a private Facebook thing where we argue back and forth. And one of the arguments that Ghost and I got into, one of the many that we always seem to get into, was around. You said that the Democrats have been the ruthless politicians, if you will, if they're the ones that have been.
No. I'm not saying that that Republicans are innocent snowflakes.
Well, no, I'm not. But you're saying that the left is predominantly like they do this, and I would think that's as someone who claims to be on the leftist side. I think Democrats have always neglected to take the low road so often that they do it to their own detriment. And I think honestly, I feel like Republicans are much better politicians than Democrats are.
Oh, I disagree. Have you read Rules for Radicals? That is the leftist manifesto. I mean, Obama wrote. I think Obama. You've never read Rules for Radicals?
No, actually, no. I've heard of it. No, I know your thing broke up, but yeah, I've heard of it. I haven't read it though.
Okay, well, definitely read that. That is the leftist manifesto for taking power. That's what it is. And that's what I think Obama wrote, like a whole dissertation on Rules for Radicals. But then
Obama turned on but to your point, with the supermajority, they didn't do anything. They didn't step on the Republicans like they could have. They could have done so many more radical rule changes with that, and they didn't. They never do. They always say, "Oh, we feel this way about
what do you mean?
We're not going to take on the NRA." In general, Democrats do not stand for their own positions enough.
Well,
Democrats are sellouts.
Taking on the NRA is a losing battle.
Well, no, it is, but it's always
not because of money. It's because
never even try.
But it's because the way our laws are written that taking on the NRA is a losing battle.
Well, I'm not saying okay. Maybe that was a bad example. My point is, it's just that Democrats. As somebody who is a liberal who votes Democrat generally most of the time, I'm constantly left with situations where I feel like my politicians are much more centrist than I am. I don't think that there is, and if you look at the way the DNC treated the whole Bernie situation, they're very much about keeping their donors happy.
They sabotaged him. No, they absolutely actively sabotaged him.
That's the whole point. They're about keeping their donor class in power. They're about keeping their money interests in hand. They still take donations from oil companies, and that's not stuff that Democrats should do, or at least I would argue that's not. You shouldn't be funded by the oil companies like Republicans are, and in the fact that they still are. And so that's why I push back on that. I think Democrats are terrible politicians. I think they've been a terrible party for a while. I think say what you want about Republicans, but they know how to organize.
Oh, didn't you love them when they were the party of the KKK? I mean, come on, think about it. Think back.
Well, that's a lot of historical things where we can, delve into that. That's not my concern. I'm concerned about the last 20 years of the Democratic Party, not.
I'm concerned with their flip on Russia. I'm concerned with, for some reason, like now Russia is their enemy when for years they defended them and passed secrets to them to the State Department. Like, I'm very concerned about this quick change of heart on, people that are fundamentally against my state's interests.
But I mean, we could. There's way too much to deconstruct with that for what we have time for. My point is that I think that in this whole situation, Republicans again did what they needed to do to get their nominee in place, and Democrats were sitting there bitching for a year about not getting Garland and didn't do anything about it.
Well, I would say
maybe they could.
Let me cut in real quick. I would say that honestly, Mitch McConnell, he gambled like hell, because no major news outlet, no major polling thought the Republicans would win, right? They thought they were going to lose the Senate. They thought they were going to lose the White House. They thought they were done. So Mitch McConnell essentially gambled. Obama offered him a centrist, and he said, no, you know what? I'm going to gamble because I want to restore the Supreme Court's balance. And he gambled, and he won. That was a huge gamble, because you guys could have gotten anyone if you had won the Senate. You could have just changed the rules. You would have been the majority.
Yeah, and because you hadn't put in Garland, you better believe there would have been some vindication there, and there would have been some.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
remember Obama. Elections have consequences. The king of respectful politicking. Yes, elections have consequences.
Yeah, I know, and they do, and that's I think why I will say here the thing about the filibuster. As much as I like it when it does things when it filibusters things I disagree with, it just shouldn't exist. Elections do have consequences. It should be when your party is in power, you can do certain things, and we have to be, angry about it, and then we work to win the next election. That's how it, and the filibuster just kind of seems like that's kind of the essence of what everybody hates about politics. That's like, oh wait, so you have the majority, but because you don't, there's this guy who can just sit up there and read for 12 hours so the bill can't get passed. And
I agree. You should have to stand up there and read, just because I like to watch politicians.
Oh no, yeah. If you're at the very least, it should have to be that. But I just don't think. I think we should do away with all that in general. It should be very.
Let me say something about process and why I'm very happy about the outcome for the Supreme Court. When it comes down to it all, okay. I am all for abortion rights. I think you have the right to abort a child until the umbilical cord is cut. I'm very radical on my position there. However, I don't agree with how it was done. I think the process of determining when human life starts should not have taken place in a Supreme Court debate. It should have taken place in legislatures. The states themselves should have decided. I like the outcome, but I hate how it came about.
But then when you just have then you have people in Wyoming who can't get abortions, they have to drive all the way to South Dakota, or they have to drive all the way to, because you would have
I know that. I know. And I get that. I think,
isn't just standing on principle to the detriment of our own existence then, in that sense?
I appreciate that it's legal throughout the country. I don't approve of how it came about. I don't want laws to be made in the Supreme Court. I don't want them just deciding laws with cases. Because yes, it's something I agreed with in Roe v. Wade. But what if it's something worse tomorrow? Or what if they decide on something horrible? And that's why I'm all against activist judges. I think activist judges are a terrible idea. I want judges to have as little involvement except saying, this is legal, this is not. That's all I want a judge to do. I don't want a judge to say, well, now this is...
I get that perspective. That's not a crazy perspective in my mind. I certainly understand that. I don't necessarily agree entirely, but I do understand.
That's why I'm happy to have Neil Gorsuch. I'd rather have 9 of him.
You want activist judges?
I don't want activist
judges and saying...
I want judges that don't want to make law from the bench. That's what I want.
But isn't every decision ultimately making a decision from the bench?
Well, no. What I'm saying is I don't want them there to be able to create new laws through their decisions, right? Because of Roe v. Wade, we can't make any laws that outlaw abortion. And even though I agree with the decision, I don't agree with how it came out. That's basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I understand. Stephen, you have a thought on that?
I understand the danger there, where we don't want one individual or group of individuals to be creating new laws. At the same time, the plus side is that you people to think critically about and be able to make a ruling that affects real present day. So for me, it's like, how
Well, if you're looking at like gay marriage,
else would this
for example.
conversation come about? Like, how else would this? Like, how else do we come to these? Like, if a judge isn't going to do it, then what is? Who is?
Well, the will of the
Congress?
country
I
should
think
elect politicians, convince politicians to change their minds on those issues. That's what should happen. It should be that if this is an issue that's very important to you, your politicians you make it clear to your politicians that, look, this is an important issue to me, and I want you to change your mind on this. And people should present their cases, their families, their loved ones. You know, like, look, this is my family. This is my cousin. He's gay. You know, and look, he just, you know, he's different than us. That shouldn't mean he's treated differently in the eyes of the law. You know, that's how it should be done. It should be thousands.
But what if you look at like gay rights? What if there's a state like Alabama that even if a lot of people feel that way, the majority do not, and yet they still use that to oppress? I mean, that's the whole thing. And this is where I think there's some nuance there. I mean, there's certainly an argument to be made that fundamentally laws should be passed in Congress, and that's obviously preferred. But the judicial system is there as a check when Congress, because sometimes the rights of the majority do infringe on the rights of minorities, and that's where justices can. Well,
I disagree. I think the job of the court is to say whether or not a law is constitutional. I think that's their job. And
I think, and as important as judicial review is actually implemented because of another case. So I mean, technically, that was not the original role of the courts. The original role of the courts was essentially to rule on things like this, to make laws, or to adapt and to look at constitutionality. And then judicial rule was given in the very first case. That's a little bit common law-y for people, but that is true. Is that one of the very first Supreme Court cases they established judicial review? It was not established in the Constitution. Not to get all technical, but that's so yeah. I think it's an interesting argument. Certainly, I think it's one that we could certainly delve deeper into.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, that's kind of going back to the role of government. But yeah, we are at our 10-15 goal mark. So let's start wrapping things up. Any other stories you guys want to bring to the table? Or any other?
I think we could just touch on some of the violent truck attacks, and I just want to say to all of our viewers that what we have to do, we have to be very careful when we condemn trucks, because if we condemn trucks as a source of transportation because of their use in terror attacks, we may regret it in the future. We may radicalize further Decepticons and further trucks, and I think that would be terrible. So we have to be very careful how we talk about our trucks when trucks attack people. All right.
Very funny. Very funny.
This is a very serious issue. Okay, not all Decepticons are bad people.
You're being very clever, but we don't have time to delve into that.
Sorry. It's just some dark humor to end us on.
All right, Steven, do you have any current events? Anything you want to talk about?
Man, I'll just counter the dark humor with I watched was it Tony Robbins? One of his he's on Netflix right now, or he has a documentary, and it's called "I Am Not Your Guru." All the bad shit that's going on this year, it's empowering video. 900. So if you have $5 short of $5, and go Tony Robinson seminar, because it seems pretty bad one and go. And I encourage everyone to look up some of his motivational talks to help you self together and motivate yourself to be the best person you want to be. So that's pretty much it.
Steven, you're always so good for the community. I have to tell a short story to our audience just to give them an idea of how Steven looks at the world. So when we discuss sports, every once in a while, Steven will throw in what about how do the athlete contribute to the community? Something that nobody ever talks about on sports radio. And I do commend you for that, because I, generally don't give a shit, but that is something that's important. So,
hey, you know, I elected you because look at all the shit all the good stuff you're ranting about Kaepernick. Point that Colin Kaepernick is a good human.
Yeah,
so,
no, that's
so
fair.
I'm glad.
That's totally fair. I think I realized that I had more of you in me than when I started when I defend Kaepernick, because I'm not defending him for his play on the field, even though his play on the field should merit getting a job in the NFL. But I'm mainly defending him because I think as the Niners players voted, he's one of the more beloved players on the team. He does a lot for the community and puts his money where his mouth is, which I do appreciate. So yeah. Concluding thoughts, and then I will attempt to come up with a topic I can rant about for a couple minutes.
Well, yeah. So, of course, to our President Trump, don't listen to the Warhawks. Don't do Hillary Clinton's foreign policy, because that's not what we voted for. Just I know that seeing people suffering from chemical weapons attack, I understand. He has grandchildren, he has children, he has young children, and I understand that those kind of attacks on innocents are happening, but he has to remember that all around the world, horrible things like this are happening, and it may not be the place for U.S. intervention, because we've been there, we've tried this, and we failed at it constantly. And it has constantly drained our treasury and drained our spirits and drained our national enthusiasm, and has hurt us in trying to integrate with the rest of the world. So I don't think we should be the world hegemon. I think we should be a friend of those who love liberty and who love freedom, and work with those who we disagree with to make a better future.
Wow, I surprisingly agree with all of
that. Me too, man. My concluding thought was pretty much check out Tony Robbins and go get motivated and go change yourself to do some awesome shit in the world.
Yeah, no, and that's something we should all take into account. So I guess, yeah, my final thoughts. I actually really do agree with Ghost in this. I just don't see what the vision is. I think that is just absurd that we think we can continue to make this region better. I don't really have a final rant now, because I really don't have any idea what I talk about. I would just literally be talking down my ass. So I'm just going to end it there. I think that was a good discussion. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. This has been Diploma Sports, an intelligent intersection of politics and sports. Make sure to check us out on Facebook /Diploma Sports, at Twitter, Diploma_sports, and make sure to watch all our old videos on YouTube, and please leave us comments and feedback. And if you have any ideas on how we can make the show better, if you have clips you want to submit or anything of that nature, thoughts, if you even want to come in and argue, we'll take your calls. We're open to ideas. So thank you, everybody, for joining us, and have a great night.
Have a great night.
Take care.